How's it going, everybody? So today in this video I want to talk a little bit about how the brain works, and specifically how our brain actually makes adaptations to routine. And when we do the same thing consistently for a long period of time, eventually our brain basically sensitizes our enjoyment and our adaptation, our progress to whatever things we do consistently. We hit a plateau. Now, this is very, very obvious just when you look at the nature of human beings, and if you've ever really been successful at anything in life, I'm sure that you'll recognize symptoms of burnout. You'll recognize, something you used to enjoy every single day tends to get boring over time. I found this to be true in many different aspects, but it really got hammered into me when I overcame like a 2-year plateau in weightlifting just by switching up the variations and taking a break from the things I was doing every single day for years. But this goes for anything, okay? And it can be plugged into many different things in life in many different ways, okay? There's many different ways to look at this, okay? So it's a universal principle, and we always hear the saying, variety is a spice of life, right? Variety is a spice of life. And human beings gravitate towards variety and novelty and pretty much every single thing. And the more familiar we are with one thing, the more sick of it we become over time. Usually on the extreme ends, driving us to insanity. Alright, so let's look at this with food, okay? So first and foremost, it's common knowledge and commonly accepted, even in mainstream medicine, that the more variety we include in our diet, the healthier we are likely to become. Okay? Now, this is partly because nutrients, we need a wide variety of nutrients that we can only get from a wide variety of foods, especially fruits and vegetables. All right, so there's the nutrients we know of, the vitamins, the minerals, and there's the phytonutrients and polyphenols and other compounds, like probably hundreds upon thousands of different compounds that science has yet to identify. Because the vitamins and minerals that we know of are, a couple 10, a couple hundred out of thousands, okay? So the only way to ensure we get enough of all these nutrients, including the ones we don't know about, is to include variety, a wide variety in our diet. Now there's that, and then there's also the fact that our body literally becomes so accustomed to a certain food that we begin to digest it less and less efficiently after a while. Now, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but let me explain. Let me first bring to you a familiar example you can relate to. How many times have you heard somebody say, or have you said yourself, like, oh, I fucking love pizza, right? I love, or whatever it may be, right? I mean, anyone watching this channel probably doesn't like pizza anymore, or whatever. But like, oh, I love pizza so much. Like, if I could, I would eat it every single day of my life, right? I could never get sick of pizza. Well, have you ever actually tried taking that food that you really love and eating it every single day? If you have, you'll find that after a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, almost always, okay, I'm sure there's some exceptions, but almost always you grow sick of that food, or at least it's not as exciting as it used to be. I find that hilarious because I've heard so many people say oh, I love Taco Bell. If I could eat it every single day, I would. No, you wouldn't. Because I know a lot of people that have that really loved fried chicken, but then they worked at a KFC or something, or a Church's Chicken or whatever, And after eating, they ate it every single day because they got the food for free. But they couldn't eat anymore because they've been eating it every single day, and also because they're around the smell all the time. Your body literally hits a plateau with food, to where it creates neurochemicals in your brain that make you seek alternatives. Okay, even though people want to believe otherwise, but it's kind of stupid. So yeah. That's partly because we crave variety, but we crave variety because our body needs variety to survive, because we need a variety of nutrients. And if we consistently eat, for example, like somebody who eats nothing but beef, eventually you start to feel sick of beef and you start craving chicken or pork or something, or fish or beans or whatever, because your body is wanting a variety of nutrients. Like, your body's create adaptations to get different nutrients from different sources, so it tries to make it it makes it impossible for you to eat the same protein or the same source of food for too long. So with food, your body enters plateaus if you do the same thing over time. Okay. Same thing goes for if you're trying to lose weight. Eventually your body hits eventually if you're doing calorie restriction, there's only so long that you can eat 1,400 calories before you want to try restricting more calories and more calories. But a lot of people realize eventually that they can't keep restricting calories to lose weight. Even with calorie restriction, your body will hit a plateau where you need to look at other avenues of weight loss. And that's why I personally don't recommend calorie counting, because there's better ways of losing weight, such as exercise, gaining muscle, and looking at hormones and macronutrient ratios and nutrients and other things. So there's that as well. Now, if you look at let's think about books or video games, right? Either one is interchangeable, it's universal. If you read about a topic, right? Let's say you are reading about, I don't know, ninjas, right? You're reading about ninjas. You can read about that for a couple months, but eventually, if that's what you've been reading every single day for an entire month, you're going to get sick of it. Now, to somebody who's very passionate about the subject or whatever, it might not be that way. But almost always, even the most passionate individuals, they hit a plateau where either they've read all that they can read about ninjas and they know everything already, or they just aren't interested in it anymore. And so they have to read other subjects now. Now, the other thing is, if you've been reading books every single day for a month, you're going to get tired of reading books. Okay? It depends on how you mix it up, though. I'm talking every single day, or even 4 to 5 times a week, right? You'll get bored of reading. Now, it is a habit and it is a skill, and you develop more tolerance over time and a better capacity to read over time. But you can't be doing the same thing over and over again and expecting your body to just cooperate. Your body's going to reject that familiarity or that redundancy, and it's going to want to learn other skills, to learn about other information, other topics, to eat other foods, to try other movement patterns, okay? Now we can see this with work, all right? Like, people will work at a certain, listen, okay, you need variety in your career. If you are working at, let's say, like a desk job, right? You're working for a bank, right? And you sit in the same desk every single day for months on end, okay? You're really going to grow sick and tired of it over time, okay? Now, you can change the people you work with. You can change the room and the environment. But as long as you're doing the same things in the same room with the same people over and over again, you're going to grow sick and tired of it. Not because the job is bad, but just because your body has already learned all it needs to learn and it's bored now. Boredom is just redundancy. It's a call for variety. Anytime you feel bored with anything, it just means you need to either think completely differently about it, but usually you need to learn new skills. You need a complete change of some kind. That's hard for most people because they have to work. And most people need to develop the right type of skills and mindset that it takes to acquire a life of variety where they can sustain their financial situation. But to the people that don't have that type of skill set or approach to money and career, and that are forced to work at redundant jobs and do the same thing over and over again, it can be quite challenging. But it's important to notice that that's what's going on, because it's very easy for people to just be like, oh, I just, I got tired of that food, or like, oh, I don't feel like reading, or, I just lost interest in my friend or in my partner, right? I lost interest in my wife or whatever. It's very easy to just say that, but it's powerful to actually understand what's really going on. Okay, because that's the only way you can actually make a change, and actually do something positive about it and rise above it. So, this works with everything. Anytime you get bored with something, or anytime you hit a plateau, like for example, if you're training martial arts, right? If you're doing the same heavy bag drills, the same sparring, if you're doing the same martial arts style for a long period of time, you're going to eventually get as good as you can get. You're not going to make too much progress. Like, you'll make progress, little bits, but eventually you're going to just be such a master at what you've been doing, especially with your routine, but especially with your style. Your body needs a break. People get so caught up in like one style or one nutrition plan or one thing, and they start having problems or regressing, and they can't accept the fact that, hey, you need to try something completely different. And if we're talking martial arts, you look at somebody like, well, this is going to be okay. Well, let's there's a couple examples. Okay, Anderson Silva, he did Taekwondo for a long period of time, and then he was a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu, then he did some Muay Thai. If you look at his training, especially his skill-specific training, he did like Wing Chun and worked with, well, this is kind of a dumb example, but he worked with Steven Seagal for a little bit. He did all sorts of weird types of training, and he was at the top of his game. Some people could say, oh, that's because he's just genetically gifted and didn't need to train specifically one style or whatever, but I don't think so. I think it's because he was more lenient with his training. He was more fun and creative with his training, so he got better. John Jones did the same thing. You look at all of his different training methods and stuff, it wasn't specifically just like Muay Thai or specifically one thing or the other. He had done, he even went over to powerlifting for a while. Then look at George St. Pierre. Yes, he has, decades of karate and wrestling under his belt. He also did gymnastics eventually during his UFC career. He did some weightlifting, and then I think he even trained with Freddie Roach, which is Manny Pacquiao's trainer. Then you look at Conor McGregor, which is not a good example because skill-wise he's probably not that great, but his achievements, he achieved some great things in a short amount of time, and he made huge improvements in his martial arts skill. I think it's because, he started off with just learning the fundamentals of, like boxing and wrestling and jiu-jitsu and stuff. But then, like, he started training with weird methods. He did a 180 and started doing calisthenics, muscle ups. He did that movement training with that Ido Portal guy. He went to a Taekwondo school to do kicks and stuff. Shit that doesn't really seem to apply to martial arts. He started doing that, giving his body and his mind a break from all the same shit that everyone else says all the time, and he became a better fighter because of it. And so even if you're not into UFC, hopefully, if you're not into martial arts and shit, hopefully you can understand the example I'm giving here. It's like, being more creative, being more expansive, doing different things, taking breaks, variety, variety, variety. It'll all enhance you as a human being. The more you hang out with one person, the less you have to talk about, the less progress you make in your friendship, and eventually you might fight, you might get sick of that person. And the same thing goes for, like, if you were dating somebody, you ever wonder why when you date somebody and then you live with that person, you start living with them, you start to hate their guts? Well, not always, but a lot of times. Part of it, you could say, oh, well, now you know each other's true colors. I think the real truth is that, at a deep biological level, human beings require variety. And that's why I don't really feel like monogamy is natural, or I don't feel like humans are meant to be monogamous. But beyond that, when you live with somebody, now it's like you just have the same person every single day, same shit all the time. You just get used to it, and it just is like driving you crazy. The same thing goes for if you stay inside of the same environment, right? You stay in the same room for extended amounts of time. There's science experiments that show humans start to hallucinate, they start to go crazy, and depression. When you stay inside your house, for hours on end, especially an entire day, you start to feel depressed. You start to feel you start to think about like the past, nostalgia and shit. A lot of people can't seem to understand why that happens, but hey, that's what happens. Okay, people are too emotional to admit, like, oh, like, I need variety in my relationships. Being exposed to the same person over and over again, is the cause. Like, people can't accept that because their whole life they've wanted to find a soulmate, that one magical person. And so they can't, like, when they're faced with the reality that one magical person every single day will drive you crazy, they can't accept it because there goes their fantasy. So they're in denial, and they think, oh, it's just because, like, now I see who they truly are, and they see me at my worst and my best or something. Like, maybe that's part of it, but I don't know, because for me, I can usually accept anyone and everyone at their best and their worst. But I just noticed the more I'm with somebody who, whether they're just all perfect or not, it can drive me insane. Human beings are both extroverted and introverted. They need times of aloneness, and they need times of socialization. And in those times of socialization, they can only handle so much of one person or different people. We need variety. That's literally the biggest and most important thing. So developing new skills, learning about new topics, this is a huge source of happiness. And I notice the more mundane people's lives are, like the more, the less variety in somebody's life, the more unhappier they are, the more miserable they are, the more of a hater they seem to be. So, yeah, just something to think about. Leave your questions and comments down below. Let me know what you think about this. I appreciate everybody's comments, and I'll talk to you soon.